Start off today, we're going to talk about focus, which is a great working group that originally started from the FinOps Foundation, where they had recognized a lot of inconsistencies in cloud billing data files from the major vendors and maybe even some of the smaller vendors, making it really difficult to get good information and actionable insight when you're in a multi-cloud environment. So the name of the talk today is From Billing Chaos to Clarity and Why Focus Matters in FinOps. And as mentioned before, my name is AJ Peter, also Andrew Peter, and I'm a product lead at Ternary. A little bit about me. I've been in the FinOps space for about 10 years. If you guys are familiar with the FinOps Foundation, co-founder J.R. Stormont was actually the one who hired me at a company called Cloudability back in 2014. From there, I went to work at Citibank and helped build out their internal chargeback allocation system while they were migrating a bunch of workloads from on-premise data centers to cloud. And as you can imagine, banks are very specific about things being penny accurate, so it had to be 100% correct all of the time. After Citibank, I ended up joining Ternary, a group of like-minded folks who are all, very experienced FinOps practitioners who felt like there just wasn't a great tool in the space for excelling at, Google Cloud. There was a lot of them that had strong focus on AWS and a little bit on Azure, but Google felt like it was a little bit lacking in the functionality. So joined this team to kind of help build that out and make it a great product. In my personal life, I'm a part-time kid taxi, so any other parents can probably relate to that. And as I mentioned before, I live in Portland, Oregon, so just with the territory, I am a coffee enthusiast. All right, so the problem with billing chaos. So cloud data, if hopefully you're familiar, but if not, we can just kind of highlight real fast. When you go and you want to get your detailed billing information beyond what these cloud providers give you in their native reporting tools, which is going to be a limited set of information, which can get you good data, but you can get a lot richer and more impactful information if you go and actually generate their detailed billing file and then be able to pull that into most likely some kind of a third-party application like a Tableau, or sometimes even the native tools like BigQuery. You can just throw it into a BigQuery table, and being able to see that. So there's potentially hundreds of columns depending on how many custom tags or labels you may have, and the inconsistency between each vendor can make it difficult to start to get a single pane of glass view and normalize all of your usage across these clouds. So with that, you can imagine if you have varying names and schemas for your different data sets, it can be difficult to start to forecast or allocate those costs back to different internal business units and make good, informed, timely decisions based on that information. And so the current state, it just really created friction for the community to be able to understand and start to action on this information. So what was the solution? Well, the foundation put together a working group of some industry experts who realized that they could work together and as a team figure out a normalized schema across these major clouds and figure out what is the most common and important dimensions and metrics that businesses need to be able to see and normalize across these clouds so that they can start to have that consistent actionable data. Because step one, if you want to get to a state of being able to optimize, your information or optimize anything really, you have to organize it first. And so being able to have it in a standardized schema really allows you to get that insight and visibility and start to be able to build out your budgets, your forecasts, your chargeback, showback, depending on your business needs. And maybe even one day get to a point of unit cost, right? That's kind of the unicorn in the industry, is you want to get to that unit cost metric where you can really drive business value and directly associate it back to your workloads and figure out what your profit margins are based on your cloud consumption. So we've had our CTO Josh in that working group since the beginning of it, along with many other great people working on this, and Focus came out middle of last year. And what's really cool about it is not only is it a connector that they provide you, so you can download these raw detailed bills from your vendor and put them through this, through this formula, and it will go and normalize that data. But a lot of the cloud vendors even acknowledged and worked with the foundation and this group to create their own versions of these files. So you can, in addition to getting your detailed billing file and converting it yourself, you can actually just download or request a copy of the focused formatted bill from each of the major cloud providers. And more providers outside of, the big cloud ones are joining every day. So I think, Databricks has, mentioned that they're going to be getting their own version of this file, as well as Snowflake and some of the other big vendors, so that we have a consistent, easy, reproducible data set, which is awesome. So what that provides us is really just bringing order to chaos, right? And it removes some of the translation overhead, because you're not having to go and figure out, hey, what are the consistent dimensions or metrics that we're using in our application, in our business, in our day-to-day. So you don't need to make that conversion yourself. And it really helps accelerate FinOps maturity, because when we're having talks like we are today, or we're going to other events and talking with other FinOps practitioners, we can all speak the same language and we can all understand similar terminology when we're talking about the things that the types of reports that we're looking at, and the KPIs and numbers that we want to be able to have and get action or get results from every single day. And so again, it creates ecosystem alignment. So it's a great, it was a great, awesome working group, and I think the results have been incredibly powerful. The other thing is that they regularly meet still, and they keep improving on the version. So I think they're getting pretty close to releasing version 1.3, which is adding some commitment planning, and commitment cost and reservation related information, which is going to be really good. So come to Ternary and the way that we implemented our focus configuration. So not only do we support the vendor native focus bill, but to prevent from our customers needing to go and configure that file and give us access and just have an additional data file laying around, we actually do the conversion for you. So you keep your same standard detailed billing information, and we'll convert it into focus format for you, with a little bit of a twist, because if you remember, focus is a subset of a much larger, potentially chaotic file with hundreds of columns of data. And the focus spec today is about 40 or 50 dimensions and metrics. And if you're talking in terms of Amazon, if you look at the Cur file, it's got 150, potentially 200 if you have many custom labels or tags in your environments, right? So it can just be a ton more data. So the most meaningful or impactful things are included in the focus spec. And so we have those in a multi-cloud display. And beyond that, there's still going to be use cases or times where you need to see some of those other columns. So we have that available, and you can just quick toggle, which you'll be able to see here in a demo. But not only do we give you focus, you have the vendor native bill, the detailed version, available and in our reporting engine to be able to query and get access from this information, which is awesome. And again, it's quick and easy to set up. There's no additional special configuration you need to do. We're handling the heavy lifting and the conversion on your behalf. So to jump into a quick demo here real quick, you can see our dashboard showing you multi-cloud, but let's jump into a quick cost report. And you'll notice we're looking at our focus billing data source. And from here, we can take a look at the metrics or measures available. You'll see all of the different vendors that we support here. And in the multi-cloud view, which is our focus implementation, here's the exact focus metrics that are available. And to compare and just see how much more data there is, you click on the AWS. Here's all of the additional metrics that are available in that detailed Cur, which are not in the focus schema today, but still available within our tool to be able to query and request those, so that you don't need to go and download that file on your own. But for this demo, let's just look at build cost, which is net cost, and see a report. Now, looking at the dimensions, similar, you can see all of the focus dimensions available. There's about 45 or so different account IDs, charge types, contracts, start end dates, etc., resource type. Lots of important information there. To compare, let's look at Amazon, their detailed bill. You'll notice the scroll bar on the side is incredibly tiny, because I think it's almost 150 additional columns that are available as dimensions to get all kinds of detail. And many of these are actually Amazon specific. So that's why some of them aren't included in the spec, but maybe in later versions. But all of this data is still valuable depending on what you're using cloud for. But for the sake of focus, and again, trying to find that normalized schema, a lot of these just aren't included because they're going to be specific to AWS services, things that you may or may not be running. But for this demo, let's go back to our focus data, and we're going to add a couple service types. So we want to really kind of filter down. We know that our total cost right now is about $3 million. And we want to try to find some of the top contributors to that spend and kind of start to get some actionable data. So the first thing we're going to look at is service category and service name. We can see storage near the top. There's a marketplace charge, some databases with SQL. And let's actually zoom in on analytics. So from the analytics side, we see Microsoft Fabric, which is a pretty high contributor. So I kind of want to zoom in on that. So we'll zoom in on Fabric charges. And from our Fabric charge, we can see that we're about $132,000, which is a significant portion. The next layer down, I want to see some accounts that are responsible or consuming this Fabric cost. So it looks like the account 2EE at the top there is the biggest contributor. So we'll go ahead and again, zoom in on that account itself. And by filtering down to the account, we can start to understand what are the largest spend drivers of this Fabric usage. And from there, we can go into charge description, which is going to be, I think, in Amazon, it's item description. And you can see we have some capacity, we have some Power BI, we have some OneLake, but it seems like the Fabric capacity is still the biggest one. So we'll zoom in on that. And after zooming in on the Fabric capacity, we've really narrowed it down. So we've got, the usage type, we've got it down to a particular account, we have it to a particular charge description. The next lowest tier of granularity is going to be a resource ID. So from there, we're going to put our resource ID on and see what's the top driver. So we can see that it happens to be this umbrella resource in the resource ID column that's about, almost $20,000 over the last month. So from there, we can take that information and maybe we could start to add some tags or some other data and understand maybe who the owner is, who the team is, who's managing it. And from there, start to look into, optimizations or what types of things we can do to, take action on this. Is this just a cost of doing business? Are there some levers that we can pull? But hopefully through that, you understand the importance of being able to have a standardized language that all of your information is in, so that you can really drill in and figure out what areas of the business and your usage are driving your cost, and then begin to take action on that, whether that's including it in budgets and forecasts, configuring some kind of an anomaly alert in case things go outside of your expected budgets or spend, and really tying that back into business value. And just to call out in Ternary, when you have these things configured, all of these reports are subscribable. You can add them to dashboards and start to customize specific quick look multi-report data sets, so you can log in, get access to all of the information that you would like to see across maybe a particular service or a particular business unit, and then get on with your day. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining my talk, and hope that you take advantage of this awesome work that the Focus Working Group has put together, and highly recommend that you either use the connector to convert your information into the Focus format, or just use the vendor native version of those files to really get a good understanding of what your multi-cloud usage looks like.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the talk, AJ. As mentioned, tomorrow we are going to have a panel with some of the members of the Focus initiative, lead together with Larry Adby. So it's going to be a fun one. If you are interested in the topic, definitely recommend you to be there as well, in this summit, of course, tomorrow. Thanks for the talk. We have one question. All the questions that you can have, please put it in the Q&A section. So Jeremy asks about transitioning between versions of Focus and all of that. So I'm going to read you the question. Is that Focus comes with different versions, implemented or not by the major cloud provider or SaaS provider. So when you are building custom things that are not using third party, how do you keep advantages of the same schema between different versions? I think this could apply a lot to you, because you guys are leveraging other feeds for Focus. So let me know, how do you deal with that?
Definitely. No, that's a wonderful question. And so the way that we handle it at Ternary is, we make sure that we're up to date on the most recent versions. So when they get released, they have an open source GitHub project where they track all of these changes. And we've actually officially supported that connector, which is, the data converter that they help, they help put together. So we run that data converter against not only the current information we have, but the historical data. Because I don't want to say with 100% certainty that cloud providers don't ever add new pieces of data to their detailed bills, but it's pretty rare. So, at least to this point, anytime the foundation has made a different version of the focus spec, it's just adding additional columns that were already present. So you can support that new version and historically reprocess your historical files. And then that way it's going to still get you into that new supported version with the additional dimensions or additional metrics that are available and get that value. I will say that because the CSPs themselves were initially reluctant to support this, they're maybe not as quick to get the new versions out, right? So if you're using one of the officially supported versions of those focus files, they're most likely going to be on a bit of a delay to get you the latest and greatest.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen, when the release, especially with the 1.0, it takes some time, especially on multiple providers. So we hope that increments, but I know it should be complex to do so as well. Another question from Ricardo is that a nice topic in the future is how do you implement chargeback when you are just doing showback, a process or framework to get you there. Yeah, probably that's a very good topic to have a session upon, like how do you transform that without breaking your company in the middle.
Yeah, that one's tough because when you're doing showback, it feels like it's a very unblamed type game, right? It's
Yeah.
just okay, here's where money was spent, but when it's charged back, people are now held accountable, and then people can get upset when the fingers get pointed at them for erroneous or egregious spend.
Yeah, but I think it's the fair game. Like everyone is charged from what they use, and that's it. Showback is fine for the informational side and on early stages, but you should transition and communicate properly that you are going to charge back to the cost that you're doing because it otherwise it doesn't feel fair. One question about I'm not sure if it's about Ternary or if it's about Focus, is that how is it different from the AWS provided Kudos dashboard? So maybe that's related to the Ternary dashboard. I don't know if you can clarify what the differences and the advantages.
Yeah, and I would say, maybe not even unique to Ternary, but a lot of these third-party tools support the detailed billing data source from CSPs. And if we're going to speak about terms, AWS, when you look at their Cost Explorer, it does have some limitations where it's generally, a couple dimensions and a few metrics, and they don't give you the full column list that is also available in the detailed billing export. So they have maybe, 30 or 40 columns available. And I will say that as a free tool, it's a good resource. And I think it's a good starting point, and it's nice to be able to reference and get value from. But if you have a decent to significant amount of monthly spend, it starts to be, it's lack of functionality starts to really be understood because it doesn't have that level of detail and granularity that you need to be able to see on your daily basis to start to build out accurate forecasts and budgets and get that near real-time feedback from all of your information in your spend, just because they're giving you a smaller subset of the larger file that they provide to you in the Cost Explorer. It does have some great tools. I just think that for companies that are spending, small to medium amounts, it's probably going to be fine. But once you get into a bigger monthly spend, and then even beyond that, if you're in multi-cloud, then you're going to have to juggle two different tools and, experience the differences between those two. And it's like, well, maybe Google's portal, you're going to have to configure a different way.
Yeah.
And you're also going to be using different dimensions and different metric names. So it just requires a level of understanding and, expertise with those reports to be able to get the same insight. Whereas the whole goal of Focus is to be able to say, hey, I'm taking multiple different schemas and data sources and normalizing that into a single language so that I can combine all of those and stack them together. And then I can just look at, hey, what's my compute cost across all clouds? And then if you're using maybe meaningful business units via tags or labels, you can start to zoom in and say, okay, so for my, web workloads, web UI workloads, whatever you want to call that business unit, I can see the cost for the last month across all the cloud providers and get that visibility and be able to start to do more accurate showback and chargeback.
That's totally true. I think the multi-cloud topic is, one of the
Yeah.
that basically that's why FinOps focus, sorry, existed. So definitely. And one last question about BigQuery cost. So Malek is asking about the granularity of the Ternary tool on BigQuery. So if you want, you can reply to it after the session to provide a more detail, or
Absolutely.
you can contact directly. But if you have any comments, you feel free to do it, and then you can
Sure.
dive deep.
Yeah, happy to give a more detailed response, but I didn't actually show it off in the demo, but BigQuery is one of the data sets that we support outside of Focus, because BigQuery currently isn't included in the Focus data set because it does have, has jobs and slots and other kinds of details that it has. So that's actually an additional data source that we go and we collect from Google and we pull into our platform, and you would just select it as a different option to be able to start to query and see that information.
Okay.
But
So
happy to provide more detail.
feel free to reply in the question, or
Yeah,
directly reach out to Malek about it. And yeah, thanks for the talk, and for the thoughtful questions. I'm going to set some rating. I'm sure that you're going to get a lot of good rates on that stuff. So thanks a lot for being in the event, and a pleasure to have you here today.
absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.